Okay, so this is a continuation of the previous video. Once I have my constructor, another thing I might want to do is write some accessor methods. Those are methods which are going to give me public access to these private variables. And in general, the format is you're going to do public so that they can be accessed from elsewhere. Public, it has to match the type. So I'll do a public Boolean. And I can do get power, which will return my power variable, whether it's true or false. And I can just do return, and I will return the power variable just like that. Sometimes with Booleans, they might give it a different name, like something like power on. I could do that as well. But the general way to do it is just to say, like, get whatever the value is and make it camel case. So I'll just stick with that for now. And if I go over to my main class, I should be able to print that out just by itself. So after headphones 2, I'm going to simply print h2 dot power, and that will print out the power level for h2. I'm going to add a line here to specify that that's what I'm looking for, and go like that. And that should print out h2 power, get power equals false. So remember, I need to use the getter method, the accessor method, because it's private. So to make it available in a different class, I need the accessor method. So I'm going to go ahead and write another accessor method and a getter for volume should look something like this. Public int volume, and I just return the volume as an int. So that allows me to give public access to both. So I want to think about also mutator methods, which allow me to change it, right? Headphones aren't any good if you can't turn them on. So I might make a mutator method, which is something like toggle power. So let's try that. I decided to go with power button. This is going to be a mutator method because it's going to allow me to change the status of the power. And basically, it's just going to make it its opposite. So if power, then I'm going to set it to not power. I could do like power equals false. So if it's true, I make it false. And otherwise, I can set it to true. Actually, I could have streamlined this a little bit by setting it to its opposite. But this does a good job of communicating exactly what's going on. So basically, you change it, and if you call this, it should change the attribute of power. So we can give that a try here. So let's see, I printed out the power here. Actually, let me do this first. I'll do h2 dot power button. And that should change it so that between the time when I print it in the constructor and when I print the get power, it goes from false to true. So that's my first mutator method. If I wanted a mutator method for volume, at its simplest, I could just let them set the new volume to whatever I want. But I might want to put some limits on that. So I said that the scale was 0 to 100, but I'm not really doing anything to enforce it. I might want to add some values to help me enforce it. So I could add some constants in the following way. I could make them public, static, final, and these will be ints. I'll make a min vol, and that's going to be equal to 0. And I will make a similar one for my maximum volume. Now, again, these are not going to be self-enforcing, but they having these constants, these static variables, can help me enforce it. And I'll show you how to do that. Remember, I made them public so that I can access them from elsewhere. It's not really a secret that it has a minimum and a maximum value. Final, so I can't change it. That's what gives me confidence to make them public. So now if I'm going to write a new, I'm going to write a new mutator called set volume, which is going to allow me to turn it up or down. So what I've decided to do is make my mutator take an increment. Now, if I want to make it go down, I could say set volume -4, and that would decrease it by 4. Or I could do set volume plus 10, which would increase it by 10. I'm also going to protect to make sure I don't go above or below my max and min volumes. So let's give that a try. At its simplest form, I'm going to say volume plus equal the volume increment. Remember, I could make that positive or negative depending on what I want to do. But I also want to enforce this. So before I let it go, I could do something like if volume is greater than the max volume, and so let's think about that. What happens if you try to turn up your headphones but they're already at max value? Well, it just stays at max value. So in that case, I'll say volume equals max volume. That's a sensible approach. If you try to make it more than its maximum volume, it just stays at the maximum. Likewise, if you try to make it more than 0, so if it's volume less than min vol, I could probably have just hard coded 0 because it's a very sensible one, but I wanted to stick with that constant. In that case, I'm just going to set the volume equal to the minimum. That way, it's going to enforce those limits. Min vol. So that should pretty much do it. So I switch back to my main and I want to test this. So I'm going to try h2 dot set volume, and I'm going to set it down by 5. And I'll just print out the whole thing again, and I should see the volume go down to 15 if I've done this correctly. Oops. I copied and pasted the wrong line. I meant to print it out again, not to declare it again. So let's see. Does that give it a new volume of 15? Yes, it does. All right, so let me try this again. This time I'm going to try to break it by going, I'm going to set the volume by up 105. Sometimes when you call this, you put in a plus just to emphasize that it's going up, even though strictly speaking, the plus isn't necessary like the negative. All right, but let me do that. And it should cap out at 100 rather than 115, and it seems to work. Now, I will note that I haven't fully enforced it. If I wanted to do so, I should fully enforce it by not letting them set power above 100 back in the constructor. That's another thing I could do to add, but I think this is a pretty good place to leave it. We have our accessor methods right here, get power, get volume, and I have my mutator methods. Let me kind of cluster the same type of methods together. Sometimes it's a good idea to like label them. So, okay, these are my mutators, and these are my accessors to help orient the person who's looking at it. And what I would like you to do is you are going to write a similar class following along these lines. Good luck.